Thank you very much. Yes, certainly we're here today to discuss the evolution of glass in windows from single pane through double, possibly to triple, and then further into multiple planes. And I suppose it's safe to say the GGF's gone through a similar evolution. We began as a simple trade federation. We were then approached by government to set up a competent person scheme, which we set up, FENSA, in 2002. We were then asked to take over the British Fenestration Rating Council, the organisation for registering window energy ratings, and we've just recently set up GGF Training Limited. So we're looking initially to support FENSA with regards to the minimum technical competence requirements, but ultimately then move into supplying all training for the industry, both in glass and windows. What the GGF tries to do is promote its companies to the industry as a whole and to consumers by being the significant voice in the political arena and debating with all other industry bodies to understand what is required from technical standards and regulations. The GGF's a recognised brand both in this country and internationally from our work we do with standards, and certainly our involvement with British standards and also on all European and international standards. And as well as being the authority and voice for the industry, the GGF guides customers, both trade and consumer, with technical advice and guidance to direct them to our member companies. Moving on to standards, I was asked to cover the impact of triple glazing, specifically on BSEN 1279 parts 2 and 3. I think I first need to mention the need to understand the objectives of setting national, European and international standards. We've got standards ranging from industry standards, work that the Federation does to provide those guidance or the necessary guidance where British standards aren't in place, through British standards, European standards, up to the international ones. And most of these standards are done by setting common requirements down on paper and achieved by consensus. So as you can imagine, the larger the groupings we try and get consensus from, the harder it is to get that decision. And that's quite often why some of these standards take a long time to produce, because there's a lot of people sitting down giving their points of view. Taking BSI first, the British Standards Institute, it's our national standards body, and it's a ring-fenced business within BSI Group. BSI is responsible for setting and maintaining all our national British standards, as well as PASs, which are the publicly available standards, such as PAS 2030, for those of you that have gone down the path of Green Deal. Probably no one's looking up because no one's gone down the path of Green Deal. CEN is responsible for European standards, which we hear so much about at the moment, and they coordinate the groups and the working groups to represent all member states in the standards development process. And it's thanks to CEN TC33 plenary, which is why I'm stood here today and not Giles Wilson, who was going to be giving this presentation, but he's now in Europe working on some window standards. And then finally ISO, the International Standards Organisation, that set the global standards, which are appearing more at this time, particularly in relation to glass standards. And there are many more standards involved with the fenestration and triple glazing than just BSEN 1279, and we believe there's possibly something in the region of 2,000 standards related to all the activities within this industry sector. Concentrating on BSEN 1279, it's important, although I was asked to talk about parts 2 and 3, to bear in mind that there's 6 parts to this standard as opposed to just the 2. Taking these in turn, initially BSEN 1279 Part 1, 2004. This covers the generalities, dimensional tolerances and rules for the system description of insulating glass units. This is important for the trade as marking conditions are also included. The second part is BSEN 1279 Part 2, 2002, which covers the long-term test method and requirements for moisture penetration. The next part, Part 3, 2002, which covers the long-term test method and requirements for gas leakage rate and for the gas concentration tolerances. And this part of the standard is inextricably bound with other parts of the standard to verify whether a product made in accordance with this system description conforms with the relevant aspects of the definition of an insulating glass unit. And this part of the standard also includes gas leakage rate by testing, gas concentration tolerances, edge seal strength, moisture penetration index, and climate exposure. The fourth part, Part 4, 2002, covers the methods to test for the physical attributes of edge seals and includes terms and definitions, symbols, requirements, and test methods. Part 5, 2010, covers the evaluation of conformity and explains the compliance originally for CPD, which has now become CPR, the Construction Products Regulation. The last part of BSEN 1279 is Part 6, 2002, and this covers factory production controls and periodic testing. This also covers the fogging test to verify that production conforms to system descriptions. So the big question is, do triple glazed units come under the scope of BSEN 1279? You don't need to test for this one, because the answer is most definitely yes. In fact, within 1279 you find the term multiple pane used. So you'll also notice that the dates of most of the parts of the standard were 2002 and 2004. And for that reason, the whole standard is now up for review apart from Part 5. Another important standard to remember for triple glazing is BSEN 14351, Part 1, 2006, which was amended in 2010. Its full title is Windows and Doors Product Standard, Performance Characteristics, Window and External Pedestrian Door Sets without resistance to fire and or smoke leakage characteristics. Again, a simple title thought up to help the industry. This harmonised European standard covers windows and external pedestrian door sets and is a set of performance characteristics. And as the slide shows, the standard easily covers windows and doors and both double and multi-pane units. And I guess at this time we don't want to be restricting ourselves to triple glazing, because we now should be talking about multi-pane, and we could even be starting considering quadruple glazing, which is already being seen in certain parts of the world. Moving on from standards, the next part I want to talk about is regulations. And the problem for us here is we're faced with a range of different regulations we need to comply with. And as you can see from the slide, we've got the Palace of Westminster for English regulations, the Scottish Government Building, Stormont in Northern Ireland, the Welsh Assembly Building, and the various European parliaments in both Brussels and Strasbourg. There are hundreds of regulations that we all need to comply with, despite the current government's target to reduce bureaucracy and limit red tape. On the ground, we're not seeing much evidence of this, unfortunately, at the current time. We obviously can't cover all the regulations here, and I certainly won't be trying to cover consumer regulations, health and safety, or any employment actions. The requirements do vary across all the regions, but unfortunately there are no specific specifications on how we comply. This can either be by U value, G value, or window energy ratings and door set energy ratings. We have influence over European regulations, and last year we saw the impact of European legislation impacting on our industry with the introduction of the Construction Products Regulation and mandatory CE marking in the UK for the first time. This obviously links in with the harmonised European standards discussed earlier in the presentation, where a declaration of performance and CE marking is required to place the product on the market within the European Economic Area, which you can see on the right of the slide. You'll be pleased to know also I'm not covering CPR or CE marking in today's presentation. The UK is one of 30 countries that make up the European Economic Area. Interestingly, while Switzerland is not a member of the EEA, Swiss nationals have the same rights as all EEA nationals, and I'm informed that almost 80% of glazing in Switzerland is currently triple glazing. The other major regulations the industry deals with are building regulations. And again, the problem here for our industry is that all 4 parts of the United Kingdom, all 4 regions, have different requirements. In England, we have the approved documents, and the 2 most notable for our industry are approved document L for thermal performance and the new Part K for safety glazing. And both of these will cover triple glazing. The GGF also summarised the requirements for replacement windows and doors within our new publication, The Good Practice Guide for the Installation of Replacement Windows and Doors. And certainly this is a far more user-friendly document than battling your way through the various building regulations. That was England. Wales now has started to produce their own guidance documents and approved documents, and these have been starting to be produced this year in 2014. Scotland has a technical handbook, and Northern Ireland is now starting to produce technical booklets. And with all these regulations, the key criteria are thermal performance, safety glazing, fire egress, and structure. The big question again is triple glazing an acceptable method to use to be compliant with all the regulations, specifically building regulations? And the answer again is yes. The final section of my presentation is moving on to ratings. And this slide shows the old BFRC logo, which probably a majority of people still recognise, and the new window energy rating label, which shows the new box logo at the bottom of it. Energy efficiency is a rapidly growing market and one of the most powerful tools available to suppliers and consumers in the idea of rated and labelled products. We've talked a lot about U values here today, and I'm sure those of you that are at the front of the sales line trying to talk to the consumers are much aware that a consumer will not understand U values. There's a great hope they will understand window energy ratings because it's the simple rainbow label they're used to find on white goods in the kitchen. So it's a simple method of being able to put over that message of increased thermal performance. For windows, the BFRC rating and the BFRC label use this as proven methodology. The BFRC rating method provides a better ruler to establish the total energy performance of the rated window. The rating method includes all the relevant factors in the energy efficiency of a window, as well as including the loss factors such as U value, but also including the gain factors such as solar heat gain. It's a scientifically rigorous method that maintains a realistic view of what is designed to provide and the needs for the local audience. And the BFRC rating method can be used for all frame materials, glazing materials or other technologies, and it can be used both today and into the future as technology improvements are made. There are many benefits from using ratings. For system designers with product developments, there's now a clear method to identify product developments which improve energy efficiency and are more attractive to customers. It gives a competitive edge, and the energy performance will be easily recognised down the supply chain, with sales to energy-aware consumers greatly increased. For suppliers, they can use the BFRC rating to identify new technologies that improve the rating. For manufacturers, the ratings will help to select future suppliers, improve sales as consumers purchase more energy-efficient windows, and improve marketing as the manufacture and sale of BFRC-rated products of C or better make manufacturers eligible for EST, which is the Energy Saving Trust's energy saving reductions. And finally, for installers, the BFRC rating is an alternative method for demonstrating compliance to building regulations if they're using a competent person scheme such as Fencer. And my last big question, are window energy ratings ready for triple glazing? And again, the answer is a resounding yes. The new A+ rating has been offered by BFRC predominantly for triple glazed products, and this alleviates the issue of whether triple glazed products should have a separate rating scheme, because the way the product has been set up, it's based on a simulation, and if you're changing certain parts of the window makeup, then that will all be taken into consideration within that function. So clearly to say, both for the current standards that are in place at the moment, for building regulations and for all window energy ratings and door set energy ratings, we have no different impact for going from double glazing to triple glazing. Thank you for your time, and I hope that's covered the issues regarding standards and ratings. I'd now like to hand over to Chris Ashworth, who will cover the environmental implications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. In terms of the environment, I'm talking about the business environment and what those opportunities or threats, problems might be. And this is quite a dynamic situation, to such an extent, in fact, that since I put this presentation together, I've had to update what I'm going to say several times. And even this morning, there was a press item which I've had to add into the presentation. So it is moving very, very quickly. Starting with the market itself, what are we thinking about? These are the people I would suggest you need to influence if you want to encourage them to use triple glazing. Some of them are users of products, so there'll be homeowners, clients of large buildings. Others are going to be the deciders, the people that actually make the decisions. And in the case of users who are homeowners, I think they're just influenced, they're informed. They don't really have enough information to make those decisions. And what about the drivers behind them for those same people? Well, we've got legislation. As has just been referred to, legislation is probably the major driver. You have to meet the legislation for buildings. You have the drive to lower costs of installation. That's very important to property owners, to contractors. They're all trying to drive costs down. Profit, of course. Again, that could be, for instance, a landlord or the client of a building who has to consider the energy costs. They want to make extra profit on that side. Maybe it's an installer who's looking to increase profit by having a premium product they can sell. Then we have the comfort issue, which is probably key for the homeowner, something that matters to them that they can literally feel. And then lower energy costs, an issue that is increasing in the press, in our awareness, and will continue to do so. And finally, we have image. And I think this is one of the problems for glazing is, as a homeowner, I'm probably more prepared to spend the money on improving my bathroom, getting a new kitchen, putting fancy pavers down on my drive, than I am for something like windows. So we've got to overcome those barriers. If we look at some of those, again, starting with the Green Deal. It's been touched on. We have two elements to it. We have the energy company obligation, where the big energy companies have to make so much money available for improving homes. And then we have the Green Deal itself. This has been around now for about 14, 16 months. And what's good about it is increasing awareness in the marketplace with homeowners, with others, of the importance of energy efficiency, of trying to make things better. It provides a means of upgrading. The idea is that as a homeowner, I don't have to put my hand in my pocket to fund it. There are methods to do that for me. And I would have thought that windows were an easy win. At the moment, I think it's thermal insulation and central heating boilers, which are the main two elements where it's being used, but windows are following in behind that. And more importantly, the registered social landlords are using it as a way, or the eco, as a way of upgrading their properties. So on the social housing side, there's quite a desire to make use of this. Now, this is some market research my company did in 2012, where we asked a whole pool of RSLs what their plans were in terms of energy efficiency on their existing housing stock. And you'll see the majority of them were planning to do something in the next year or so. So that's good, positive news. The twist of that is that, announced in the press recently, because of the clawing back on the eco, because the government has reduced that side of things, 49 local authority schemes have been either revised or put on hold, and that's been announced in the last month or so. So that's slowing down on the original expectations. So what's against the Green Deal? It is expensive to fund. As I say, the idea is that you don't need to put your hand in your pocket, but it is using a commercial interest rate between 6 and 7%. And many people can probably borrow for less than that on their mortgages. So it's not exactly an attractive deal on that side of things. When the Green Deal was being put together and a number of private sector organisations were involved in working groups to come up with solutions, one of the key things they said was you need to put across government messaging. It's something that's been said over and over again. People need to know that the government is behind this, that they can have confidence in companies that offer it. And unfortunately the government's failed to do that in any effective manner. So that's not given the scheme the credibility that it should have. And consequently, we see a slow uptake. On top of that, we have the eco consultation. I'm sure you'll all recall David Cameron announcing about a month ago that he was going to cut the green taxes on energy. In effect, he's halved the amount that the energy companies have to put in to the eco. So that's slowed it down. As I say, the local authorities are cutting back on it. And in terms of the Green Deal moving forwards, we saw, first of all, with the ecos, 19% slump in February of new projects being commissioned. And in plans for the Green Deal, only 33 were actually brought forward in February. Bearing in mind when this was launched, the government had said they expected 10,000 homes a year to be using the Green Deal. So way, way behind on that. So that's rather a disappointing situation. So the government has promised to make improvements. They have a cashback scheme, a bit bureaucratic and complicated, I think. They've extended it once. There's talk that they'll extend it again. And basically this means as a homeowner, I get some money put into the cost of this to reduce the cost for me. They started to simplify the Green Deal process to make it easier to adopt. And last week they announced that there would be the Green Deal Communities Scheme for local authorities, putting £88 million available for local authorities to spend on energy upgrades. So perhaps that compensates for the loss of the eco, or some of the eco funding. Certainly that's an area where I'm sure, again, triple glazing would be an option those local authorities would want to go for. Code for Sustainable Homes. This is one of the great hopes in terms of generating extra opportunity for energy improvement, and it had the target that by 2016 every home would be level 6, which is effectively a zero carbon home. The other good news is house builders prefer to use fabric first solutions over these things like heat or ground source energy pumps where there's a problem with them going wrong. So an ideal opportunity again for something like triple glazing. But we saw in the Housing Standards Review the government is intending to wind that down, to transfer the Code for Sustainable Homes into the building regulations. It'll go into Part L of the building regs. So that will no longer be a situation and will be dependent on Part L to bring in those changes. At the same time, they also talked about removing the ability for individual local authorities to require higher levels of energy efficiency on developments. Now, as I said this morning, there was actually an announcement in the press that Labour have responded against that and are going to campaign for that not to be allowed. So we may see local authorities able to, shall we say, push for higher standards than the government's recommending. Time will tell, or more to the point, the election. So Document L. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. The latest edition became effective this month, about 6 months later than it should have been. Unfortunately, it's had a limited impact in terms of opportunities to upgrade and improve properties. Personally, I think there was a missed opportunity when we saw consequential improvements being withdrawn. This was in the original proposal and basically meant that if you put an extension on your house, you had to make energy efficiency improvements to the rest of the house as well. Seemed to make good sense, would have helped drive the Green Deal through, and again, would have been a great opportunity for triple glazing. But again, it got hit in the press with the conservatory tax, as it was dubbed by the Daily Mail, and Cameron dropped that from that part of the building regulations. So what will the next revision bring? As I say, the Code for Sustainable Homes should be incorporated into it, so we should be seeing it asking for zero carbon homes. However, then comes the issue of the timing. At the moment, it's set for the consultation to be going out around about the time of the election. And there's concern that if that happens, well, if it happens, will it happen? Will the government wish to be putting out something which could be contentious at the time they're going for re-election? And the industry at the moment is pushing the government to bring that consultation forwards so it can be completed before the general election campaign starts and then still come out at the scheduled time. But otherwise, I think it's quite likely we won't be seeing them in 4 years, 3 years, as should be the case. BREEAM, if you're looking at the commercial sector, it's BREEAM that rates properties. Again, that's seen some revisions this year. At the moment, they're consulting on revisions for refurbishment, but they're only minor changes. However, the good news is that there is a major revision planned in the not too distant future, and again, it's an opportunity to get something like triple glazing incorporated into it and allowed for. What other things are there driving sustainability? The government set up the Green Construction Board just over 2 years ago. Its main purpose originally was to facilitate the Low Carbon Construction Action Plan, which was put out by the then Chief Construction Advisor, Paul Morrell. It's made up of over 100 individuals, including myself, who come from the private sector and work voluntarily to try and push forward the aims of the Green Construction Board, which are to encourage sustainable construction, to demonstrate that there's a financial benefit, that we can save money by being more energy efficient, and to try and enable that. So, for example, one of the groups is the valuation group, which is trying to get, when a property does have energy improvement methods incorporated, that it's recognised as adding value to the property, which currently doesn't happen. So that's running. It's, as I say, it's mainly driven by the private sector, so it may be that it gets out of control and the government loses some of that side of things. But that is a powerful, it might be too strong a term, but a force to encourage sustainability and more throughout construction. So what does it all mean? There is a desire within the government to encourage energy efficiency, and I think the same applies to the Labour Party as well. So whichever power or combination of powers gets in next time, I'm pretty certain that much of the initiatives that we've been seeing will continue. The question is the efficiency of implementing them. And again, as I've given some examples, it's very, very vulnerable in terms of anything that looks like it's going to threaten a vote gets canned. So that's a problem. The government has put limited funding towards this, and that has restricted things. However, I think energy prices will keep going up. Whatever the next government does to try and control them, inevitably they'll go up and up and up, and they will become more of an issue for people, and therefore they'll be more responsive to ways to save energy, to save money. But I think the real issue is that homeowners don't understand. And if I go back, way back when, I worked for Saint-Gobain Glass in the 90s, and we did some research to understand the uptake of this at that time, this newfangled low-E glass. And we took to homeowners who'd had their homes improved to understand why they had or had not gone for low-E. And it became very clear that the main reason that homeowners hadn't opted for it was they didn't know about it. And in fact, our main achievement was to upset a lot of people who just spent their money on upgrading their windows and then discovered that actually they could have had something much better. So I think that in terms of getting it adopted, in terms of triple glazing, it's down to the industry to inform people, to tell them the benefits, to show them how they can benefit from going for triple glazing. Unfortunately, as I said earlier on, many people will have other priorities. I know if I went home today and said to my wife, great news, we're going to spend money on changing all our windows to triple glazing, she'd point out she's been asking for a new kitchen for several years, and I think I'd get vetoed on that one. But clients in other sectors do recognise the benefits, and retail is a very good example of that. Now, I've used Marks and Spencer's because I've got a nice picture, but all the major retailers are very focused on energy efficiency. They're looking at how they can implement changes, new ways of doing things. So on the commercial side, I think that's a big opportunity. And it's not just retailers, although I'd say they were at the forefront. So finally, what does it all mean? Excuse the pun, but the climate is right. There is an environment out there where there are the opportunities, but it's still down to us to make it happen. System integration, by that I mean it's not just about the triple glazing unit in the frame, it's about pulling together the frame and the walls and everything else and selling that as a total concept. Communications, we need to get the word out in ways that people will understand, in relevant benefits. And there'll be a need for certain sales tools to help companies do that, which is probably down to some of the larger manufacturers represented in this room. So that's for me. Thank you very much.